3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
From the place where yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Wednesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and, of course, streaming on YouTube. 855-212-4CBS is number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always interact with me on the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. Also on Instagram, where I'm always straight flexing as well. Same handle, at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. We're rocking and rolling all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern. 3 p.m. Pacific. Moist Mike is here with us, along with Stuart Kovacs as well. Chip Patterson will join us from the Cover 3 podcast in an hour 20 from now on this early National Signing Day period. And then the head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, Matt Rhule, will stop by in the final hour of the show at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific. What I'm about to say right now, I don't think is going to surprise a lot of people, because if you listen to this show, you may say, well, what's changed? Because you maybe don't follow the day-to-day of our kind of running of the network and kind of the day-to-day behind-the-scenes things over on the Zach Gelb Show and also in the entirety of CBS Sports Radio. So, as you know, Damon Amendola, back in September, left the network. And I love DA, big fan of DA, extremely kind to me, wish DA nothing but the best with what he's doing at Sirius. And when that happened, they promoted Maggie and Perloff, who used to be in this time slot, to Morning Drive on many of the same CBS Sports Radio affiliates from 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern. So when that happened, management had a conversation with me, and they said, we want you to be the interim host from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 p.m. Pacific. And I said, absolutely, would love the opportunity. And obviously, I don't plan on giving the job really to anybody else. And I hope when you go through the hiring process that you need to go through and, you know, everyone crosses their T's, dots their I's. You interview whatever candidates you want internally and externally. I'll be the best candidate for the job because, you know, I've been here since 2018. We've created a ton of headlines here at CBS Sports Radio, and I knew I was the best candidate for the job. But if management thought it was somebody else, you know, that's a decision that they were going to make. And, you know, I would go back to doing 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern, 3 to 7 p.m. Pacific, because I love CBS Sports Radio. Well, a few weeks ago, they informed me that this is my job permanently. I think some of you will be like, well, you've been on my radio in this time slot since September, so not really much has changed. If you listen to the show during that time period, we give you a compelling sports show that features some of the biggest names in sports, and also we like to have fun. You know, we don't take ourselves too seriously. You know, I'll yell, I'll go nuts, I'll go crazy about a certain sports topic, but at the end of the day, it is all in good fun. So I'm very happy that the company announced it today. There were some other moves that needed to be made as well, and thrilled to be here Monday through Friday now, officially from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. And I also just want to thank a few people right out of the gate. Spike Eskin, our boss, who I've known for a long time since I was an intern for the legendary Angelo Cataldi at Sports Radio 94 WIP, the rest of the management team here at Odyssey and CBS Sports Radio, starting with the man that runs the entire company in David Field, Susan Larkin, David Mayernick, one of our program directors here, Pete the Body Bellotti as well, who's a part of the management team, Jeff Sotolano, and also on the Westwood side of things, would like to thank Adam Schifrin and also Bruce Gilbert. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that I'm forgetting. It's not intentional. But those are some people that, you know, I had a vision when I got here at CBS Sports Radio, didn't know some people, and they have worked with me. And, you know, I remember when I got here and I was, you know, I'm a young person, but I was like right out of college after doing a stop at WNJE in Trenton, New Jersey. And then I was doing post game in Philadelphia and doing some stuff locally in New York and Philadelphia. And when I was at the Super Bowl, when the Eagles were in the Super Bowl up against the Patriots, which they eventually won, I had a meeting with Eric Spitz, who used to be the head honcho around here at CBS Sports Radio, and he said, we got weekend overnights open for you. It'll be 2 days a week. You go Friday into Saturday, Saturday into Sunday, 2 to 6 a.m. Eastern. You'll be on 300 stations around the country. And, you know, I came in here, did 2 test shows, and then they called me when I was at my other job in afternoons, being a program director and afternoon drive host for a small AM station in Trenton, New Jersey. And without hesitation, I accepted that job, got here, was in this time slot from 2 to 6 a.m. Eastern from about like a year and 8 months, and then I left. And I left for about 3 months, and I went to Sirius. I had a great opportunity, wanted to work 5 days a week and improve my craft, and I love the weekend overnights, and it was so fun connecting with so many listeners, and we made some big headlines like, I remember we had Freddie Kitchens having to go to a press conference and respond to a clip that was said on our show with Bob Wiley. We had Donovan McNabb predicting when Carson Wentz was in the heyday as his time as the quarterback of the Eagles that he'll be out of a job with Philadelphia in 2 years. So we made a lot of headlines, and I was looking for a new opportunity, and Sirius came calling. And, you know, I went there on a part-time basis, but I was working 5 days a week, and shortly after I left, I got the call back to do 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern. And in that time slot, that was massive for my career. It was an enormous opportunity. My mid-20s at the time. And, I did that show for over 3 years. And then it moved into this new promotion. So I'm thrilled. I created some good friends in that 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern time slot. I'd be remiss if I did not thank my two producers, Mike Biseglia, and then also Ryan Hot Take Hickey, who I love, even though I beat the crap out of him on the air and trash him for all of his bad takes. I'm a huge supporter of Ryan Hickey, and I can't wait to see how he continues to grow as a host. But also, when you're on a time slot like that, before games, after games, you connect with so many local affiliates. I made a connection with Bart Winkler, where I would go on his show, and I always believe doing a national show that you go on where the affiliates are. And unfortunately, Bart lost his job. There were some cuts in the company, and I reached out to Bart, and I said to Bart, I want you to fill in for me when I'm not here to do my CBS Sports Radio show. And management loved Bart. That turned into Bart Winkler getting some weekend shows, filling in for me, becoming a great fill-in host here at CBS Sports Radio. And I'm thrilled to see today that they promoted Bart from a part-time host at CBS Sports Radio to a full-time host, going from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. And that new lineup's going to start on January 2nd. And also JR Sport Brief, who, has been a great addition, and it's not easy shoes to fill when the network lost Scott Farrell. And I love Scott, one of my favorite people in the history of the business. And I know he's going through some health problems now, and he's going to kick ass and take names. And Scott Farrell is one of one. But when he left CBS Sports Radio, there were big shoes to fill, and they did so with JR. And I've known JR for a bit. We've done a bunch of draft shows, and JR is an exceptional talent and a phenomenal radio host, and I'm happy for him now getting to work some earlier hours as well. So today's a good day for CBS Sports Radio. I say this all the time. I put our national lineup up against any other national sports radio lineup in the country. I believe in the people that we work for. I believe in the continuity that we have, starting with Maggie and Perloff, going into Bill Ryder, the legendary Jim Rome, who is the franchise of what we do here at CBS Sports Radio, our show, JR, now Bart, and then also Amy as well. And congratulations to Amy, who just got married over the weekend, which was awesome to see on social media. So I love what we do. Odyssey, Westwood, and CBS Sports Radio, they value the audio side of radio, which sometimes gets forgotten about. And I really do believe in our lineup, and I believe in our network's vision. And I think we're going to have a new chapter of CBS Sports Radio that's going to be a wonderful chapter. So congratulations to everybody. Samter, he's not going anywhere. I know some people in the YouTube chat want to see Samter smile some more. We'll try to make Samter smile some more. But Samter, I've known for years now, he's one of the hardest working people in this building. Not many people care more about the product of the show than Michael Samter. And Stu is not going anywhere either, because I need to make fun of somebody when their football team loses. And we know the Raiders are pretty damn good at that. And we know Stu won't be like Samter and will jump ship the moment his team starts losing, like the Jets, where they lost his entire life and become a Chiefs fan. We know Stu is loyal to the Raiders. And Stu, I've known, even when I didn't know him, I knew Stu. When I was his boss at that low AM 920 The Jersey radio station, Stu was supposedly my employee. And since he was there on the weekends and I wasn't there on the weekends, I never knew that. But I've worked with Stu part-time on the weekend overnights, full-time, filling in, different time slots, and always love what Stu does bring to the table. So we're going to have fun. Not much is going to change. It's a weird spot for me because since September, I always had the vision that I was going to get this job and get this show. But for it to be official, it's a big moment in my career, and I'm absolutely elated, and I'm fired up to continue to build in our community. That's the biggest difference with CBS Sports Radio compared to any other national network. Like, when I go to a remote broadcasting event where DA had that Bob's Bar show with Marash, and there's people flying in from Vancouver and California and Randy in Alabama. This is only a radio thing that happens. Drives to the show, and I park his car. It just shows that we have something special here. And we have a family feel, and it's sometimes tough on a national landscape to connect with the local audience. but CBS Sports Radio at times feels, even though we're a national network, like we are a local network because we care about our listeners and we connect with our listeners. We talk to them on the air at 855-212-4CBS, on social media. And then it's always great when we go to the draft, when we go to the Super Bowl, when we have events that we can connect in person. So I'm thrilled. I'm elated for this opportunity and what people have built here at CBS Sports Radio, from Gio, Brian Jones, Jim Rome, what he's done, DA, the list goes on and on and on, BT and Tiki as well. And I'm just excited for the next chapter. And some people don't like change, and I understand that. But I think if you give our show a try, if you give us a chance, you're going to say, wow, even though I don't always agree with Zach, which is fine. You don't always have to agree with me. He puts everything he has into these 3 hours that he has. And you're going to get his best. And you're going to get different perspectives from guys like Stu, from Mike as well. And we'll reach out to some of the biggest names in sports. And we have a pretty damn good track record on getting those guys on and saying some things that creates a compelling kind of show here at CBS Sports Radio. So I know that's about like 12, 13 minutes. I didn't expect to go that long on it, but I'm fired up for the opportunity and really happy to officially be here Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 p.m. Pacific. I always love a challenge, and I'm looking forward to accomplishing great things in this time slot. Let's do this because it's then like the awkward elevator kind of moment right now where it's like, oh, you're giving your speech and then the elevator doors open. I don't want to transition to a different topic. So let's just take a break right now. It's 13 after the hour. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. When we come on back, Jim Harbaugh, I don't think he's returning to Michigan. I've had a change of heart. We'll discuss where I think he's going to when we return on the brand new Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
Tyreek Hill should win the MVP just on his own team before Tua Tagovailoa and also the rest of the NFL. But I have zero confidence that these voters are going to go to a wide receiver and are going to go with the non-quarterback. Quite frankly, I think the two most valuable players in the league right now are Tyreek Hill and Christian McCaffrey. And I do believe Tyreek Hill is the most valuable player out of all the 32 teams in the NFL right now.
Here's Zach Gelb.
Brand new show. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, officially Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. We appreciate you listening in to us. We'll talk about Jim Harbaugh in just a second. But, Samter, you're usually a pretty good read on these things. I told you I was going to forget like two people. I forgot two people in terms of the people that I needed to thank, and they may be the two most important people or the two most important groups in my life right now. Well, we just had the whole thank yous. Oh, we got the show. We're so super excited. I didn't thank my family for a second.
I was thinking mom and dad.
Oh, my goodness. My entire family, everyone that is related to me, I thank you for believing in me and really supporting my dreams and my aspirations and all that. You know, my family, it's kind of like how I think radio should work. We all like to bust each other's chops. And I know the moment I get off the air, I'm going to get a bunch of texts. Oh, you didn't thank me originally. You thanked all those management people, but not the people that made you. So thank you to my parents and everyone related to me. And also my agent, Mark Lepselter, who is just absolutely phenomenal. And I've known Mark for a very long time, and he's the best. If you're a radio host, if you're on TV, you want to be represented by Mark Lepselter. Anyway, enough with all the lovey-dovey, pat everyone on the ass, kiss each other, and we love each other type of talk. I got to get to Jim Harbaugh. So before the season started, I thought this was going to be Jim Harbaugh's final season with the Michigan Wolverines. And the reason why I thought that was over these hamburgers where he was at the Brown Jug in Michigan buying recruits hamburgers, and then there were some recruiting violations as well and impermissible contact during the COVID period and things like that. And I thought to myself, since Harbaugh didn't bow down to the NCAA, and the feeling before the season started was it was going to be a 3-game suspension, but the NCAA infraction of the committee infraction, they wanted him to issue an apology and basically admit that he was wrong, and he refused to do that. So then Michigan self-imposed a 3-game suspension on Harbaugh, and that was one pending issue, where he's still going to get bare minimum a game or two, if not more, from that incident. And then, as you know, the biggest, most ridiculous story to ever hit college football, the whole sign-stealing scandal came about with Connor Stallions, and no one knew who he was before that. And there's going to be some punitive action, I would imagine, from that, where even though Tony Petitti tried to be a big tough guy and then was basically like a coward at the Big Ten championship game, and Harbaugh did a good move. He's like, oh, let's get the trophy to Zach Zinter. I won't even shake the hand of Tony Petitti. I don't even want to see that Tony Petitti, who is a coward, and he knows Rob Manfred, so that doesn't really surprise me that in a big spot, Tony Petitti projectile vomited and operated out of fear and was a coward and bowed down to all the other schools in the Big Ten that were upset with Jim Harbaugh. So when that happened, there was more and more of a push that Harbaugh was going to leave. And when everyone's saying somebody is going to leave, even when I was in the opinion before the season that Harbaugh was going to depart Ann Arbor, I kind of looked at it and said to myself, well, Harbaugh's a different dude. Like, you tell someone turn left at a light, Harbaugh's just going to turn right for the sake of turning right, and he travels down a totally different path than any of us. And he's a strange guy. So even though I was advocating at one point Harbaugh to go to the Bills, and I think I've advocated for Harbaugh to go to like every team that potentially could have a job opening or does have a job opening, I started to soften my stance that he was going to leave. But now, as we're a week or two away from the semifinals, and we're waiting to see the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, between Jim Harbaugh and Nick Saban, Michigan and Alabama, the Harbaugh story is starting to become a story again. And when I sit here today and I have to make a prediction, will Harbaugh leave and will he be back at Michigan next year? The reason why I can't say he definitely will is there was a report a few weeks ago that they were nearing a new contract extension where it was going to make him, right, the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, and there would have been a clause in that contract that he wouldn't be allowed to leave this hiring cycle to go pursue an NFL job. I find it funny that we have not heard a peep about that potential contract extension that seemed like a done deal in the last week or two. And Michigan has had a bunch of opportunities to get this done, and I don't know if they don't want to get it done or if Harbaugh doesn't want to get this done. And I go back to the last two hiring cycles. After the first time Harbaugh beat Ohio State, he did that 12-hour interview with the Minnesota Vikings. We've all interviewed for jobs that you maybe try to do for leverage, and you're maybe not serious about interviewing for that job. But no one sits through a 12-hour interview if they're not serious about potentially taking that job. And the job wasn't offered to him. So you then fast forward a year. He wins another Big Ten championship. He beats Ohio State again. And last year, he had to practically beg for a team to hire him. And Denver said no. Carolina said no. And now here we are for a third straight year where he doesn't have a new deal done with Michigan. Michigan for the third straight year. Sorry, Michael Fry, one of our loyal listeners. He has defeated Ohio State. He's won 3 straight Big Ten championships and now has a legitimate chance to not only win his first college football playoff game, but to win the national championship. He's 2 wins away from winning the national championship. 2 years ago when they lost to Georgia, no one thought they were winning that game. Last year, they were thought to beat TCU, but they would have never beat Georgia in the national championship game. When you look at this college football playoff right now, with Michigan, with Alabama, with Texas, with Washington, by the way, Washington's coach Kalen DeBoer going to join us tomorrow, there is no one team that is a lock to win this national title. Where in other years, it's been a totally different feeling. Like, I expect 2 awesome semifinal games, which we don't always get. They're usually blowouts. And it's just bizarre to me when Michigan has an opportunity to go to bat for their guy and stick with their guy in a bunch of controversy when he has brought Michigan back, has dominated and beat the snot out of Ohio State, has won the Big Ten 3 straight years, that this deal isn't done. And with this deal not being done, it just screams to me that even though Jim is a Michigan man, even though Jim loves the university, and I do think he would love to stay, but I also think there's a part of him that has the NFL calling. When you basically have exceeded the expectations what you could do at Michigan. Now, that program was in a bad spot. You got off to a decent start, and then you could never beat Ohio State. And now you have brought Michigan back, and yeah, you still have to go win a national championship, but if you leave tomorrow, people will be upset because you're leaving, but people aren't going to look at Jim Harbaugh at his alma mater in a negative way because he made the program significantly better. And when he went to the NFL, it was only a 4-year period. He had problems with Trent Baalke, the GM of the 49ers, but he went to 3 NFC title games and a Super Bowl. And oh yeah, by the way, he lost that Super Bowl to his brother. And it's been clear in the last 2 years, he's wanted to go back to the NFL. And also now you have to deal with name, image, and likeness. Now you have to deal with the transfer portal. Now you have the NCAA closely monitoring everything you do. As long as Harbaugh gets offered a job this offseason by an NFL team, I do think he's gone. And there's some attractive jobs out there. You know, the Raiders have some talent with Davante Adams. We'll see if Josh Jacobs stay. You have Max Crosby as well. You know, I could see maybe Mark Davis offering the job to Jim Harbaugh. The Commanders are looking for someone to run their entire organization. So if Jim Harbaugh wants power, he could be that guy. You know, I wouldn't go to Carolina, but you know that David Tepper will throw you an enormous amount of cash. And then you have the Chargers. Because, like, Harbaugh wants to win. And Harbaugh, either him or Belichick, will be the two most sought-after coaches, but Belichick right now is under contract. So you have to pay for him. And you look at the Chargers, the question just becomes, are they going to pay Jim Harbaugh? Like, it's one thing to give up draft picks and then pay the coach. For Jim, you just got to pay him. And I would have to think that if the Chargers are actually an NFL team, and I know you hear all the time about how cheap the Spanos family are, they will do whatever it takes with this young core and this good core and this talented core that have been underachieving the last few years under Brandon Staley, who should not be a head coach. I would hope, and maybe I'm naive here, but I would hope that the Chargers would hire Jim Harbaugh. I really would. And I saw the Jordan Schultz report that the Chargers are interested in him, but are they actually interested in him? Are they going to put their money where their mouth is? And for Jim Harbaugh, what wouldn't you want with the Chargers? Like, you know the West Coast, you know California, you know Los Angeles. You got a young quarterback who's ready to be a star in this league. You still got some good wide receivers and Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. And you just drafted Quentin Johnson out of TCU. On defense, you got some players in Derwin James and in Bosa and in Khalil Mack. I just think they need a better coach. So right now, I do think Harbaugh's preference is to go back to the NFL. And the Chargers would be foolish to not either get Bill Belichick or Jim Harbaugh when it's all said and done. And with how much Harbaugh keeps on saying he wants to be at Michigan. Like, I even go back to after the Vikings didn't hire him. He said, this won't be a yearly occurrence. And look at what has transpired the last 2 years. He didn't get offered a job last year. He barely had any interest. But it was a yearly occurrence. And here we are now for the third straight year talking about, is Jim going to stay or is Jim going to go? And my biggest question here is, why hasn't a deal not been done yet? And is that because Michigan has some reservations about it with the pending sanctions that are looming? Or is it that Jim, even though he says he wants to be at Michigan, really has his eyes on the NFL? Like, is this when you're single and you go out to a bar and you're talking to a 7 or a 7.5 and you're in a good spot? Like, you're in a good spot, but then the moment a 9 or a 10 walks by, you're like, if that girl talks to me, I'm not going to talk to the 7 or the 7.5 that I'm talking to right now. And that's what it feels like with Jim Harbaugh. He's happy. He's talking to the attractive girl. She has a good job. She has a good personality. She has good eyes. She has a good smile. but his eyes are wandering, and he's just waiting for someone a little bit better to come calling. And the moment that NFL team offers him a job, I think he's as good as gone. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Do you think the Chargers should hire Jim Harbaugh? And do you think Jim Harbaugh is going to be leaving Michigan to go to the pros? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We'll take a break. When we come on back, it's time to bench George Pickens. Update time first. Here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Insurance for motorcycles, boats, and RVs for protection on the road and on the water. See how much you can save at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com. There will be no Aaron Rodgers on Sundays, but he will practice with the Jets for the rest of the season as he continues his comeback from a torn Achilles. His practice window was closed, and he's been put on the active roster, but it's only so he can practice. The Jets' other quarterback uncertain for this weekend with Zach Wilson still in concussion protocol. Two other quarterbacks are dealing with the same deal as the Jaguars' Trevor Lawrence still in protocol. The Texans' C.J. Stroud has yet to return to practice. The Saints' Chris Olave will be back for Thursday's game against the Rams after sitting out Sunday due to an ankle injury. It's only been 25 games, but the best team in the NBA right now is not the defending champs, nor is it the tradition-rich Celtics or the in-season tournament champion Lakers. It's the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are 20-5, and they've won 4 in a row, make that 3 in a row entering tonight's matchup in Philly. The Sixers are 18-8, 2 games behind Boston in the East, while the Celtics continue their road trip in Sacramento after it opened with an overtime loss in San Francisco. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
The drama Dallas choking Cowboys, welcome back. I missed you. I would not be lambasting the Dallas Cowboys today. I would not be chastising the Cowboys if they would have just had a pulse in the game. But that body was dead early in that contest. And then you had to sit at your funeral, and it was a slow, long eulogy and a slow, long funeral the entire day.
Here's Zach Gelb.
It's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listeners, get to ask us a question. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. You can thank O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. I am so sick and tired, or I'm actually past the point of being sick and tired and having to talk about George Pickens. I was done with George Pickens after a Steelers win up against Tennessee on a Thursday night football game, where after the game where he failed to secure a catch that would have been a touchdown, he had the audacity in a win, let me remind everyone one more time, to post "free me" on Instagram. That was childish, it was unnecessary, and it was diva-like behavior from one George Pickens. And George Pickens, let's just call it for what it is. He is selfish, and he only cares about himself. And he has the potential to be a great wide receiver, but he already thinks he's great. And right now, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and he's not worth the headache. And right now, when you see the one incident happen, all right, young player, maybe he could learn from it, from the whole "free me" incident. But then there's a viral clip of George Pickens failing to block against the Colts on Saturday when Jaylen Warren is running as hard as he could, and you get inside the 5-yard line, and you have two Colts defenders near Jaylen Warren, and what is George Pickens doing? He's just standing there, and he's not giving a rat's ass. So they asked him about it afterwards, and he goes, "Oh, I was just not trying to get hurt." Are you bleeping kidding me? Because here's why your argument is ridiculous. And don't tell me you were trying to prevent the Tank Dell situation that happened 2 weeks ago with the Texans. Because we all know if there was a ball that was thrown your way and maybe because the Steelers have bad quarterbacks, it was thrown a little bit too far. If you thought you could make the catch and dive and extend your body to go reel in the catch, even though you were maybe going to get hit or you were going to hit the ground hard and you could have suffered an injury, you would have done it. Why? Because it would have boosted your stats. Why? Because it would have boosted your ego, and it would have had everyone saying, oh, what a catch, what a play by George Pickens. Part of being a receiver is not only catching the ball, but also blocking. And for him to have the audacity afterwards to just openly admit, not even have a good excuse, not even do like a dog ate my homework or come up with something, but to actually admit that you just didn't want to get hurt, he's got to be benched. And now I turn my attention to Mike Tomlin because Samter informed me during the break that Mike Tomlin said he's not going to get benched. And they're going to play him this weekend. Mike Tomlin, who's a well-respected coach, I know he's somewhat on the hot seat right now, but do you have any accountability in that locker room? Like Mike Tomlin, you've dealt with much worse. You had to deal with Antonio Brown. You had to deal with the jackassery of Chase Claypool as well. You know, this is easy stuff for you now. You're used to dealing with these things. But George Pickens, every time he opens his mouth, he's saying something stupid. With the freebie stuff in a win, and now, oh yeah, I wasn't blocking because I wasn't trying to get hurt. You can't allow that to happen. And what about the other guys in the locker room? You know, I know the Steeler team isn't some great team this year, but if those other teammates have pride and they actually care about what they do, how do they go to battle? How do they go to war with George Pickens this week when he's not willing to give it his all? Like, why would another guy start checking out and start making business decisions as well when you're this late into the season, when you're trying to turn your season around? It's inexcusable. And for Mike Tomlin to say that he's not going to bench him, I just can't support that. And it's once again showing that even though Tomlin is a phenomenal coach and would get a job tomorrow, maybe it's time for a change with the Steelers. Could you imagine Hines Ward, the great Hines Ward saying, yeah, I'm taking a play off. I didn't feel like blocking. No, Hines Ward would hit you in the mouth, and it'd be the proudest moment of his career. And this is ridiculous. And I don't know if it's a leadership issue. I don't know if no one can contain George Pickens, but it's a guarantee. This guy will get traded this offseason. There is no doubt about it. Tomlin back or not, who's going to want to put up with this guy? He was bitching earlier in the year about a win, saying free me, and now all of a sudden, yeah, I don't feel like blocking because I don't want to get hurt. And don't be one of these dopes today that goes, oh, he's thinking about what's in the best interest of himself. Oh, George, I wouldn't want to get hurt either. Stop it. This is football. You make a block. It's a simple part of your job. And you know what? I don't want to hear him use that injury as a potential excuse because he'll make catches and he'll take big hits. You could get hurt that way as well. It is just so ridiculous. And how the Steelers continue to enable him and don't hold him accountable. You got to sit his ass down. You got to pay him whatever, suspend whatever you want to do. I don't care. Whether you can suspend him or not because of the CBA, it's a totally different conversation. But you don't have to play him. You could pay him. You don't have to play him. And playing him this weekend would be an absolute embarrassment. And it would go against everything the Steelers stand for. The Steelers used to be a gold standard organization in the NFL. One of the more respected organizations in the NFL. Synonymous with winning. And now you're allowing George Pickens to openly say, yeah, I wasn't blocking someone. I wasn't giving it my all because I was afraid I was going to get hurt. And you're allowing him to get away with this? This is a young player. You just went through something similar with Chase Claypool, who, in his first season had 10 touchdowns, and then he talked himself out of Pittsburgh? And now George Pickens, who has an enormous amount of talent. Remember everyone before the season, oh, Pickett to Pickens, this is going to be special, this is going to be wonderful. Yeah, those takes didn't age well, but that's a different topic of conversation for another day. But now you have a teachable moment to a young player who doesn't get it, and you're going to let him skate free? You know, it doesn't matter what Tomlin says behind the closed doors. It doesn't matter what Tomlin said, even when he condemns him in this presser. You're letting him play. You are letting him play in his next game. take football away from him this week because he doesn't want to be a football player. He just wants to be a selfish wide receiver on the field that only cares about his individual stats and doesn't care about the team. That's what George Pickens is about. Oh, I don't want to block. I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt. Then don't call yourself a football player. Don't be on the field because there's a bunch of other guys that would like to block and like to get the paycheck that you're getting and give it their all and probably would do a better job than you would do. And I've seen videos before of George Pickens blocking. We've seen it before. This is something new. So now, by not sitting him down and by playing him, he's going to think this is okay. And he's going to get away with it. Oh, yeah. They slapped me on the wrist behind the scenes. Maybe they made me run a few sprints in practice. Oh, Mike Tomlin gave me a stern talking to, but they didn't sit me down. And, I would love to talk to Jalen Warren. And I feel bad for him. You want to go to battle with George Pickens? You feel good with George Pickens? When you're trying to go get a touchdown and you're 3-4 yards out, George Pickens is standing there with basically just playing with the thumbs? That's what we're doing now? It's ridiculous. Like Samter, I'll play the audio in just a second from Pickens and from Tomlin. But when you're trying to get a team back to a spot where they were, I'm not saying everyone's going to be all in 24/7, but this isn't like skipping some training in the offseason or for voluntary OTAs not showing up. When you're on the field and you're a receiver and you're asked to block, that's mandatory. And you don't want to block because you're afraid you're going to get hurt? I don't want you on my team. And I'd sit your ass down, and I would not play him this week. That is ludicrous to me. As Emmitt Smith would say, it makes me hot. It makes me mad that they're going to play this guy this weekend.
The only thing I would say to that, because I'm with you as well, dude. I think it's ridiculous. I think that they have to send a message. But I'm also not in that locker room, right? Mike Tomlin seems to have a pulse of his players. He seems to understand and know what motivates and how to get to his players. Now, maybe this year it's not working quite as well, but okay. Mike Tomlin, the one thing you can always say about Mike Tomlin is he has the respect of his players, and he respects his players, and he talks to them, and he's like a player's coach in the sense that he communicates well with his players. That's something.
But there's respect there. It's not a doormat. Yes.
So my thought is that Mike Tomlin has a better understanding of what it is that's going to work for George Pickens than we do. Now, it's a very easy thing to say. He's not blocking. He's not taking accountability. Let's bench him. Mike Tomlin's probably thinking on a much deeper level of, okay, I know this kid. I've been with him for 2 years. I've seen him work. I know what makes him tick. I know what motivates him. I know what doesn't motivate him. So maybe he's thinking on I don't know. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that he knows better than we do. However, on the surface, it is a terrible look that George Pickens is playing. Yeah, it's a terrible look that he's not taking accountability. And it's a terrible look that Mike Tomlin and the rest of the team is not making him take accountability. So it looks bad on the surface. I'm just hoping that I'm just giving Mike Tomlin the benefit of the doubt
Mike
that
Tomlin
he knows better than
this. If George Pickens got benched this weekend, I don't think George Pickens ever listens to Mike Tomlin again. But if that's why you're not punishing him, you already know that this relationship is fractured beyond repair. Whether you play him or not this weekend, I think George Pickens is trying to force his way out this offseason. He's going to demand a trade. And really, he has no leg to stand on to demand a trade, and I wouldn't trade for him because he has all the talent, but he seems like a royal pain in the ass and a headache that isn't worth the production that we're seeing on the field. Let's go to Mike Tomlin. This is on George Pickens dealing with the media as of late.
I would like him to be more professional in terms of addressing some of his shortcomings with you guys to further add fluidity to the process. He's not helping himself. He's not helping the process in the manner in which he's dealt with you guys. But the manner in which he deals with you guys is not necessarily the manner in which he deals with us or himself regarding acknowledging where he is and where he needs to go.
That makes no sense. He is just talking to talk. He gave us all what we wanted in the beginning. I'd like him to talk better to the media and clarify what he's saying and all that. But then after that, there's like this great separation between the media and the fans, right, grouped together, and then what's going on inside that locker room. Like, the locker room is sacred, and we can't understand what goes on in the locker room. Heck, let's say I was an offensive lineman, or I was Jaylen Warren, or I was another wide receiver on that team. You think I'm happy with George Pickens? Oh, George, why didn't you try to help Jaylen Warren out there? Oh, I was afraid of getting hurt. Well, here I am busting my ass, and I could get hurt, but I'm still giving it my max effort. That's why it's ridiculous. Don't give me that, oh, there's this locker room, and we can't understand what's going on in the locker room. Tomlin knows better than that. And Tomlin knows Pickens is in the wrong, and for whatever reason, he's not willing to punish him. Here is Mike Tomlin on the lessons that George Pickens could learn.
When you're winning and doing your jobs, man, a lot of the attention and so forth is on things such as that. When you're not doing your job and losing, you better keep your damn mouth shut and understand that that tracks a certain type of attention as well. And usually that's vulture-like attention.
Well, Mike, he ran his mouth when you guys were winning with the freebie, and he still ran his mouth while you were losing. So it goes both ways. This guy just runs his mouth. It's verbal diarrhea over and over and over again from George Pickens. And he only cares about himself. That's all he cares about. Oh, I'm not blocking because I don't want to get hurt. Bull crap. Absolute bull crap. Because I'll say it again. You throw him a ball that's 3 or 4 yards out of his reach, he'll extend for it because it increases his personal brand. He didn't want to block. And that's why you need to sit this guy down. How do you not get that? As a veteran coach who's been in this league as a head coach since 2007, has coached in 2 Super Bowls, has won a Super Bowl, how do you allow George Pickens to get away with this? This is now 2 times he's been a dope this year. After a win against Tennessee, oh, free me. How about you get your second foot down and catch the damn ball, George Pickens? And now after a loss, after you were up early and you had, 30-something points scored on your ass? George Pickens refused to block, and you're letting him just get away with it. Man, how the Steelers have fallen. It's embarrassing. Have some accountability. This is a young guy that has a lot of talent, and he's going to talk himself out of the league because his attitude is horrendous. His attitude is embarrassing. And I wouldn't want him on my team because all he cares about is himself. He doesn't care about the team. And that's not how you win in the NFL. And I could put up with selfish players, but you better be putting up better numbers than what George Pickens has given you. What a joke. Well, what a disgrace. And I'm disappointed in Tomlin for basically allowing him to get away with nothing.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, we continue hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Chip Patterson, Cover 3 podcast, going to join us coming up 20 minutes from now. We will chat a little early National Signing Day, as that is today. And also Matt Rhule, the head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, is going to stop by an hour 20 from now. Dylan Raiola, the number 1 recruit in the nation, is going to Nebraska. So we'll chat with the coach of Go Big Red an hour 20 from now. All righty, 3 college football topics for you. We'll spend about 5 minutes on each. Let me start with Chip Kelly's plan. So I heard him say the other day that college football would probably be at its best with all the changing conferences and things that have happened with basically the Pac-12 going away, and you have a bunch of schools bolting to the Big 12 and the SEC and the ACC and also the Big 10, where now it's almost as if we should just have a 64-team, what was of the Power 5, all those schools just go and join a 64-team super conference. Now, when I originally hear that, I go, I don't love it, but I think with everything that happened, we're basically going to that road. Where right now, after this year, you'll have 4 Power 4 conferences. You have the SEC, you have the Big Ten. Those are the 2 big behemoths. And then you have whatever is left of the ACC and then also the Big 12. And even though a bunch of schools just joined the Big 12, so I'm giving them credit for keeping their conference alive, if ever the SEC or the Big Ten comes calling for those schools, they'll be interested. And soon you'll see some schools leave the ACC, but it's going to be a while. Because they're we'll talk about Florida State in just a second. It would cost Florida State almost $300 million to leave the ACC now. So they got to wait for that contract to continue to move down the road so they could get their own rights out of the conference and then also their TV rights as well. But the way I think college football is probably moving towards, especially with expanding the playoff to 12, which I am vehemently against, but I've already lost that argument because they're expanding it, whether I like it or not, to 12 teams next year, is it's probably in, I don't know how many years this is going to be, but it's probably moving to 3 different sectors where it's going to be the Big Ten, the SEC, and then after you see enough schools leave the Big 12 and the ACC, whatever remains is going to form into another conference, and the Power 5 in a decade is going to go from 5 to 4 to eventually 3. So that's where we're moving towards. And people think it's inevitable that the 12-team playoff, which expanded from 4, is going to expand even more down the road. Yeah, I could understand grouping everybody together, and you would have different sectors and divisions inside the 64-team super conference, but just making college football its own entity. Because even though I don't think we think this way, because I care about college football and I care if my games are on Saturday and all that, but for the rest of the athletic departments, like when Oregon, for example, moves to the Big Ten, all their other teams are also moving to the Big Ten. So you'll have Oregon, I don't know, field hockey or Oregon swimming, whatever the sport is, having to travel across the country to go have a meet or go have a competition up against Rutgers. And we know why Oregon is going to the Big Ten. It's because football drives the train, and the money for the athletic department through football is by moving to the Big Ten. So since you're kind of in that weird geography kind of standpoint, and I get it, I'm already past the point of having feelings about the geography and all that because I saw the Big East, and I know the Big East has life again, but there was nothing like growing up as a kid, skipping school and going to the Big East tournament. And because of football, and then because of where they're going from where the money is, it just made the geography of the teams that left made absolutely 0 sense. So now, try to wind it back in. And yes, everyone's going to want their piece of the pie, but have it go to 64. And I don't think that's a terrible idea by Chip Kelly. And if you could have one operating voice actually leading the conference instead of the NCAA wanting to do something petty, and then you have the Power 5 conference commissioners and everything, there's really no leadership in college football. And you could have divisions inside the 64 where you could keep the geography and you could keep some of the rivalries, and they could go play some of the other bigger schools. Because when you go to a 12-team playoff, you do a disservice to the regular season because the way that we know college football, it allows a landing spot to some of these other schools where if they would lose one game, their season would be over. So you could now lose a big game and your season's not over. So go play tougher opponents, right? And I saw some of the SEC schedules that just recently came out. I think there's some great games on that schedule. And eventually, if there's a soft landing spot with 12 teams, there's going to be an even softer landing spot when you expand the playoff inevitably even more. So, I have no problem. Put it this way. If you would have told me 3 years ago, let's do this, I would say, what are you, stupid? I would say, how dumb are you? But now, since there's been so many changes, just have football operate on its own and just make it one big super conference because it feels like we're going that way anyway. Ryan Hickey, who works here, I even though his takes are terrible when it comes to college football, and he gets a lot of predictions wrong. He is one of the more, if not the most knowledgeable people when it comes to college football at this network. The guy watches a ton of college football. And even he said, like months ago, let's just go to one super conference. And I said, I can't crush you for that because your idea makes sense. I don't like how we got there, but your actual idea does make sense because if this is eventually truncating to 3 power conferences where it's just the haves and the have-nots of the SEC and the Big Ten, and the SEC and the Big Ten, they're going to be selective on who they want to add. I would say just formulate together and create it on its own, different than every other sport. And those sports could stay in their conferences, and there could still be money for those conferences and things like that. And since football is the focus for both these athletic departments, just let them operate on their own. That's what I would do. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but Chip Kelly, even though he doesn't have as much clout as he used to, like when he was at Oregon, he's still a big-time name in college football. He is still a respected name in college football with what he was able to do. I know he's the coach of UCLA now, but what he was able to do with the Ducks. And I think now what you're seeing is because a lot of these coaches know that the NCAA is very petty and the NCAA is so selective on what they're going to punish. You've seen a lot more coaches be more honest when talking to the media. Like, I don't think Chip Kelly's making this suggestion 10 years ago. I don't. Even when he had things humming at Oregon. Matt Rhule the other day, who's going to join us later, or 2 weeks ago, he's like, yeah, just so everyone knows, I'm not criticizing it, but it costs $1 to $2 million now to go get a quarterback in the transfer portal. And there's just no rules here. Like, we all bitch about Michigan and the sign stealing. How many of these coaches, before the players even go into the transfer portal, are already making offers or having their collectives make offers to these players? That was Cam Ward. I don't know if it's true because Cam Ward hasn't made a decision yet. But Cam Ward, there was a Brock Heward who said he has like 7 or 8 $1 million offers already. And before he even went to the transfer portal for crying out loud. So it's really like the wild, wild west right now with college football. And there's no leadership. And there's no direction. And I think you need to reel it in. And you could do that by just saying, we got all the haves and the have-nots, all the big-time programs. They're going to the 64-team conference, and everyone else will drop down a division or whatever, and you'll formulate. You could operate on your own, and you can still have a level of football, too, and see where the money is. So I do not oppose Chip Kelly's plan now in the year of 2023. All righty, 2 more things. Florida State is now thinking of leaving the ACC. Andrea Adelson had this report. Not a huge surprise here considering, everything. That's a funny way of putting it. But I've been told by multiple people that Florida State is once again evaluating its long-term future. Florida State could want out of the ACC. Florida State could felt like they got screwed. They did get screwed. Because they're feeling, we just went undefeated in the ACC, and we're getting told we're not attractive enough as an undefeated ACC champ to go to the college football playoff. So I get why they're annoyed. And they don't get enough money as they should because they are one of the leaders, if not the leader, in the ACC. And even if they wanted to leave, and I would think either the SEC or the Big Ten would want a brand like Florida State. This is not like one of those brands that's begging to leave, and it's like, why would anyone want you? This is Florida State, for crying out loud. That's still a top 25 powerful brand in college football. This is not some small school that just had like 2 or 3 years of success. And Mike Norvell's done a good job in restoring Florida State. And yeah, they probably should have gone to the college football playoff this year based off their credentials. But, the 4 teams the committee did select, I can't really crush the committee for what they did. But just because Florida State's now reevaluating their future, it's really an empty threat. You're not allowed to leave right now. It's going to cost you too much money. Now, you find the $300, $400 million to leave. God bless you want to pay that and leave. But, I remember reading this over the summer when we had these conversations, when the Pac-12 was folded right in front of our eyes, and Florida State was like, oh, maybe we should go to the SEC. Maybe we should go to the Big Ten. They still got, 9 or 10 years, I think, left on that contract, something like that. So you'd have to pay an exit fee of $150 million from my understanding. And just because you pay your exit fee doesn't mean you have freedom entirely. You then have to go get your TV fee and your TV rights as well. You know, it was somewhere north of $300 million to leave the ACC. So it's an empty threat. That's what it is. It's an empty thought. Your heart may be in the right place. It may make sense for you to leave. But financially, are you going to be able to find the $300 million? I don't think so. And finally, Lane Kiffin is crushing the transfer portal. Unprecedented what he's been able to do in the transfer portal. And also just reportedly got a new extension at Ole Miss. You know, I wonder what the expectations are moving forward for Lane Kiffin. Because he's had back-to-back really solid seasons. I don't know what transpired, whether Auburn didn't want him or he didn't want Auburn. I think it was more so Auburn didn't want him, which kind of surprised about because I would rather want Lane Kiffin coaching my team than Hugh Freeze. But regardless, there was that thought that maybe he was going to leave last year, and it was looking and trending like he was going to Auburn, and then he did not. So at Ole Miss, I'll just ask the simple question, what are your expectations moving forward for Lane Kiffin? And it's kind of that spot in college football where they are a really good program. I wouldn't call them a great program, and I can't sit here and say, oh, Lane Kiffin, I expect a national championship, especially moving to 12, and you're going to have to win more rounds. I think for Lane, what would be really successful, and I don't know how long he's going to be there, but I would say just get to an SEC championship game. Like, if you're in an SEC championship game, you'll have a damn good chance to win it. But just getting to an SEC championship game, I think would be really impressive for Lane Kiffin. And then if you're there, who knows how far you're going to take it. But I can't sit in this chair and say now, because Lane Kiffin's had back-to-back successful years, he's crushing the transfer portal, and Lane Kiffin just has this new extension, that all of a sudden I expect Lane Kiffin to be winning a national championship at Ole Miss. And it's weird because that should be the expectation, that should be the hope, that should be the goal, but I don't know how realistic it is when you still have Alabama humming, you still have Georgia humming, and then you've done a really good job, but is just doing a really good job, basically your apex there considering where you are. So you get into an SEC title game, and then I'll roll the dice and see how far you could take it from there. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. We'll chat a little bit about National Signing Day on the early period with Chip Patterson when we return from the Cover 3 podcast.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, and we continue. This is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll chat it up right now with CBS and Cover 3 podcast host Chip Patterson, kind enough to join us right now as we react to all the chaos that is ongoing in college football with the early National Signing Day period. And also, by the way, we got 2 semifinal games right around the corner, and they're both expected to be great this year. Chip Patterson, appreciate the time. How are you?
I'm doing well, Zach. I hope you are.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm doing fantastic. Appreciate you coming on. We were just talking about Lane Kiffin before you got on. Has that new extension, also has a monster class coming in. It makes me wonder, what are the expectations moving forward for Lane at Ole Miss, which it's going to be a tough place to win a national championship when you got Georgia and Alabama in your conference.
Yes, tough to win a national championship. Yes, tough to win an SEC championship. But Zach, 12-team playoff. If Ole Miss is the third or fourth best team in the SEC, now you're starting to rack up college football playoff appearances. Who knows? Maybe you're able to host a home game with these new on-campus first rounds. I mean, think about the Grove with playoff implications. You think about maybe you get a good draw. Remember bracket luck. We know that from college basketball. You never know what happens elsewhere. Somebody takes out the king. Now all of a sudden the path doesn't look so rocky. So the Ole Miss's investment, which is happening on a couple levels. Number one, the investment in keeping Lane Kiffin and making him happy. Number two, the investment in the resources that he can take to the recruiting game, because it's not just coming out of high school. I mean, he is getting some dogs from the transfer portal, bolstering that defense. And Zach, I think what he's looking at is here in the first year, the 12-team playoff era. He's got a group at Ole Miss that is going to be in the New Year Six for the second time since he showed up in Oxford. He is getting players off other SEC rosters that were some of the best pass rushers, like the best pass rusher at Florida, one of the best pass rusher at Tennessee. He's bringing them to Ole Miss because I think he senses this is the time to get it. In the new 18-team conference era, there will be years that are the green light years, and there are going to be the years where it's going to take a miracle for you to be able to match your talent to the record. Ole Miss has a favorable draw in 2024. I think with the expanded playoff, Lane Kiffin sees an opportunity to say, yeah, I'm not Alabama, I'm not Georgia, but if I'm the third best team, that still gets me a ticket to the dance.
How about what Chip Kelly said the other day, and maybe just go into a 64-team one power conference, and then everyone else is basically left out of the dance and operating on their own?
Yeah, that's either first of all, I love to hear that he's not only embracing that, but that Chip Kelly and many coaches who've been a part of this for a long time are also starting to embrace the ideas of revenue sharing, because there's no doubt that the economics of college football are set up so that people like Chip Kelly and head coaches and administrators and athletic directors can make more on their salary because there is not money that's going to the players. And to hear Chip Kelly not only propose basically a mini NFL model, but to also, say that we need to cut the players in on the revenue, it's clear that the winds are shifting, even with coaches that have been around for a long time. But in terms of the structure that he mentioned, either that's way down the line or the train has left the station and we're never going to get it. Because ultimately, you're trying to get everybody under the same roof, and just look at the history of conference realignment. These conferences don't trust each other. These networks don't trust each other. I mean, there's so much of a land grab and an asset grab that's happening at all times. I just don't see there being that kind of consolidation, because ultimately it would mean that someone, most notably the conferences, would be having to give up a lot of power for that.
Yeah, and we've already seen it basically move down from 5 to now 4, and eventually I think it's moving down to 3, where it's the Big Ten, it's the SEC, and then it's whoever else remains as that third conference. But, I understand what he's saying from logic. It would be nice to get everyone all in one conference and just say, okay, football's going to operate on its own. But you're probably right. I don't understand how realistic it is, because there's going to be some schools that maybe don't belong that end up getting in that conference, and then it could create just a big mess.
Yeah, there's also just the general idea that if we move to a place where the players are compensated, I think there are schools in power conferences right now that are like, yeah, you know what, we're out. We're gonna go and we're gonna play elsewhere. This is not the game that we want to play, and there will be some self-sorting. There will be programs from Group of 5 conferences that then will have an opportunity to level up, because they'll say, "Oh, is the barrier for entry money and investment?" Ba-ping! Yeah, we can do that. That's what we see. SMU's joining the ACC, and they just said, "No, we won't take any money. We just want to be in. We just want to play big time football, baby." And that's what you're going to be looking for in terms of, teams number 59 through 64 of the new FBS Plus, or however it ends up looking. So where Chip Kelly's coming from might not be all that far off. Like, we might reorganize the conferences and we see something like that happening. But right now, it doesn't seem like it's in our near future.
Chip Patterson here with us. How about Florida State? I guess they're reevaluating things. It seems like an empty threat to me, because there's a $150 million buyout fee, and then they have to go get their TV rights as well. I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon, right?
There was some creative accounting that was done when Texas and Oklahoma left the Big 12 to go to the SEC. And I'm not reporting on this like here with you, but just to say hypothetically, if the contract says I have to give you all of the media rights of my new deal, what if I join a conference and in joining the conference, I sign something that says, and we'll get 0 media rights dollars? Because then technically I would only have to give you 0 media rights dollars, because I'm not getting zero media rights dollars. But how about that? The Big Ten or the SEC, choose your favorite Florida State fans. What if they also put in a little signing bonus? It's not media rights dollars. It's just a signing bonus, a gift. This is a basket to say welcome to the league, and it just happens to be $300 million. I think there are creative accounting methods so that Yeah, the money is not the issue as much as it is making sure you have a place. If Florida State had an invitation to the Big Ten or the SEC or waiting on them, and it was a firm invitation, not back channels or anything like that, then I think that they may already be gone. I think that announcing that you are reevaluating your position is also sending some smoke signals to say, hey, we might be willing to take a favorable deal, like Oregon and Washington, which are not taking a full share of Big Ten money right off the bat. USC and UCLA, they went through a different process. Oregon and Washington were in a conference that was cratering, and so they got a different deal. I mentioned SMU, different deal with the ACC. Stanford Cal, different deal with the ACC. If you've got your money together and you can handle taking a little bit of a pay cut, then yeah, the grant of rights, it can be figured out potentially.
Talking to Chip Patterson right now. Dillon Gabriel landing at Oregon. I absolutely love it. Like, I remember, obviously it's not ancient history, but when Bo Nix went there, he wasn't as accomplished in terms of what he did on the field. When he got to Oregon, he ended up having 2 great years. I love what Gabriel's been able to do at multiple stops, UCF and Oklahoma. It seems like a perfect match for Oregon as their next stopgap quarterback.
Oh, and let's also look at the fact they picked up Dante Moore, the freshman from UCLA, who was committed to Oregon until UCLA flipped him at the very last minute during his own recruitment. So what Dan Lanning has been able to do is be able to get the bridge and then the future, because you bring in Dillon Gabriel and think about the things that work really well in that Oregon offense, the way that it was run, a little bit by Kenny Dillingham last year, but definitely by Will Stein this year, is it's all about making the right decision. I mean, it just seemed like the Ducks were a buzzsaw, just 8 yards a snap every single time, just so efficient, just finding the open space, get it to them and go. And I think Dillon Gabriel is experienced and very good at being able to deliver the ball in space. I think Dante Moore's got a little bit of a higher ceiling, but clearly when he was thrown into the fire with the Bruins this year, it did not go well. So this is the best possible spot for him and a great thing for Oregon in that you're going to be able to, again, have a veteran presence there, but then also know that you've got an alpha waiting in the wings so you don't have to dip back into the portal after Gabriel leaves.
Now, the whole confusing thing is because you never know how much money these guys are getting, and I don't know what Dante Moore got. Is he going there because of the money, or is he like on board with that plan where he may have to sit out for a year and not play that much for a year when Dillon Gabriel does his thing? That's what I'm fascinated by.
Yeah, I think that it is locking on with a program that has everything going in the right direction. I think when Oregon lands in the Big Ten, the conversation is not whether they slot 4th or 5th. The question is whether they slot 3rd or 4th. I think it's Ohio State, it's Michigan, and then we're going to look up and we're going to be like, wow, maybe not going like team by team, not predicted order of finish, but just that big picture pecking order, right? Ohio State, Michigan, they're always going to be at the top of the Big Ten. Always, always, always. Unless, heaven help us, we have another Rich Rod situation. Or Brady. We're not going to mention any of that right now, Big Blue. All right? But I do think that where Oregon is at right now, I mean, they are ready to run with the big dogs, and they are looking at this opportunity playing in the Big Ten to say, you can't dismiss us because we're on the West Coast and we play late. You can't dismiss us by saying the Pac-12 is not good. If we land in the Big Ten and we're contending for Big Ten championships, we are one of the premier football programs in the country. And I really like there's a word. A lot of college football coaches use it. It seems like a buzzword, but I promise it's true. It's alignment.
Yeah.
You've got all the right people all moving in the same direction. I think Oregon's got that right now. So for Dante Moore, I mean, UCLA can kind of be a mess. Chip Kelly might be on a hot seat, and you look around and you say, oh, we could go there, where it seems like the machine is just getting started.
What's going on with Ohio State at quarterback? I'll preface it by saying, Chip Patterson, I said all year that Kyle McCord was going to be the reason why they don't beat Michigan. Now McCord is off to Syracuse. There was a chance he was going to go to Nebraska, but then the Dylan Raiola situation happened. I know Cam Ward's still out there, DJ Uiagalelei, but it doesn't seem like they're in on them. What's going on with the Buckeyes at the QB spot?
It's funny because inside, people who are close to that program seem to have a lot more faith in like a Devin Brown, in a Lincoln Kienholz. Like the players that are there, clearly either by reputation or spring game performance. I mean, there clearly is a lot of more confidence than I have, to be honest. Devin Brown, very small sample size. I know he's a terrific athlete. I didn't really get a good chance to look at Lincoln myself, but they seem to think that if we don't end up landing the big fish, and like you, I mean, I'm doing the dominoes, right? I'm counting the ones available, playing musical chairs and saying, okay, so who does Ohio State get? I think that it'll be a very interesting year for Ryan Day, because just like they had going into this year with Kyle McCord, and they're losing Marvin Harrison Jr., they're losing Julian Fleming. I think they're going to lose Emeka Egbuka as well. We'll see. But whether it's Carnell Tate, it's Brandon Ennis. They just got the number one wide receiver in the country in Jeremiah Smith, a guy who physically could have played college football this year instead of just dominating in South Florida all throughout the high school season. So they're still going to have a wide receiver room that's going to be one of the best in the country. Can the quarterback, whoever it is, be more effective in the pass game? That's a huge part of the Buckeyes' outlook for 24.
I would love to see DJ Uiagalelei land at Florida State. It'd be so fun to see Florida State, Clemson with all that history. But what do you think is going to happen here with DJ and then also Cam Ward, since we talked about them both?
Well, I mean, it's a Sunshine State battle. I mean, that's like you're looking at Cam Ward, probably a little bit of interest from both Florida State and Miami, and DJ Uiagalelei, a lot of connections to Florida State. Miami, maybe not as hot on DJU. I know that Miami also has some interest in some other players as well. So I think, like you, DJU at Florida State would be fantastic. I think that Cam Ward at Miami is going to be potentially very, very interesting as well. Cam Ward started at Incarnate Word. Yeah. I always got to make sure, like, Ward. And you just always knew he was prolific. Then he gets to Washington State. He has a lot of good performances as well. He would show up at Miami and he would join a squad where Mario Cristobal, I mean, they have had some shortcomings on the field. They have had some head-scratching moments, certainly, but they are recruiting really, really well. So it could be a chance for him to be the veteran, right? Sort of like the wise transfer veteran player, kind of like Derek King was a few years ago around a budding roster. So if I was to say, let's make it really clean and let's make the story great, let's have Cam at Miami, let's have DJU at FSU, we get DJU against Clemson, and we get those two quarterbacks facing off against each other as well. But I think there's still some big decisions to be made on both fronts.
All righty, Chip Patterson, before we let you run, I just want to toss out three teams. I'll get like 30 seconds on your thoughts on where the program is moving. Let me start with Jonathan Smith, coming over from Oregon State, now landing with the Michigan State Spartans.
Yeah, just so incredibly encouraged there. You get Aiden Childs, the promising quarterback who is with him at Oregon State, to be able to jump on board as well. I like his staff hires. His defensive coordinator hire was terrific. So this is a good sign, because Michigan State was one of those teams in jeopardy of getting jumped when all the new schools come in. This allows you to be able to say, we can still hang with the top tier.
I'm a big fan of Fran Brown. I was waiting for him to get an opportunity. I know him as a Temple grad, and Elijah Robinson is going to be a head coach one day as well. There's some excitement about Syracuse football now. I never thought I'd be saying that.
Yeah, the list of SEC players who are visiting Syracuse, New York in mid-December might be worth ACC Coach of the Year as right there as it is. I mean, he has just been putting in work to reestablish those relationships. College football is always going to be a relationship business, and Fran Brown did such a good job of that at Georgia. But what's more impressive is the fact that he's getting some of these SEC big boys to entertain the idea, and in some cases, not just McCord, but like Fadil Diggs from Texas A&M, commit to come playing for the Orange. So that's a good sign for Syracuse.
And then finally, Dylan Raiola landing at Nebraska. Nebraska had a really good defense last year, nothing on offense. Where is their spot moving towards in college football right now?
Man, Zach, it's crazy. I saw the same way offensively, but Dylan's uncle's the offensive line coach, and the performance warranted a big old raise. Wow, that's so weird. I didn't think that Nebraska's offense said, let's give the offensive line coach a big raise, but you know what? There's a lot that goes into college football coaching, and when you can make it happen, then yeah, you can get rewarded. Matt Rhule has done One thing for Nebraska football that I think Nebraska fans really appreciate is he's an adult. And I don't want to unpack all of the Scott Frost era, but when we had all those one-score losses, it wasn't that it was a team that was unlucky. The string of one-score losses, I think, was reflective of an operation that was not crisp and that was not really good at the margins. And that when you just even tighten things up at the margins, that's how you're able to go out and be competitive, even when you don't have better players. And I think that Matt Rhule has at least brought some stability into that position in a way that hasn't been there in a while. And clearly Nebraska's got the resources for them to make some noise. Now it's going to be the more difficult jumps, right? Is it lose big, lose small, win big? Jumping from one to the next is difficult, but at least he's created some stability.
Chip Patterson, make sure you check him out. CBS, also the Cover 3 podcast. Chip, love the energy, love the insight. Thank you.
Sounds good. Y'all be well.
There you go. Chip Patterson joining us right there on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Matt Rhule will stop by at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific. But first, we got to update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We call that segment the News Brief. But let's get to Rich Ackerman, who's standing by with the latest CBS Sports Radio update.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, the Seahawks survived without Geno Smith, but their starting quarterback is ready to return, with Pete Carroll saying he'll be a full practice participant. We found out yesterday Aaron Rodgers isn't going to play this year, but he is being added to the active roster. But it is just so that he can continue to practice and rehab his torn Achilles. Their starter last week, Zach Wilson, currently in concussion protocol, while the Jaguars' Trevor Lawrence is also in concussion protocol, but said to be progressing well, while C.J. Stroud of the Texans still has yet to return to practice. Chris Olave will return for the Saints tomorrow against the Rams after sitting out Sunday with an ankle injury. Don't look now, but here come the L.A. Clippers. They're healthy, and they have adjusted to the newest roster additions. They have an 8-game winning streak heading into Dallas tonight. The two teams are currently tied at 16-10, 5th and 6th in the Western Conference. And L.A. climbing into a guaranteed playoff spot, albeit very early. The Timberwolves, coming off their 20th win, go for their 4th straight tonight in Philadelphia with the Sixers, just 2 games off the lead in the East. And the Celtics in the top spot are in Sacramento, coming off an overtime loss last night to the Warriors. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio is turning up the heat this December. From the NFL playoff push, bowl games, and coast-to-coast action from the NBA hardcourt to the college game, we've got you covered.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, this is Zach Gelb show on CBS Sports Radio. Let's start it off with John Morant back on a basketball court last night after his 25-game suspension. Had a monster effort, hit the game-winning bucket to take care of the Pelicans. And when running off the court into the locker room, he was talking about how he kept receipts. So an odd thing to say, because you got suspended because you were on social media flashing a gun multiple times, and most people just said, wow, we want Ja to not go down that road, and we don't want him to do something stupid because he's lucky he didn't hurt himself or hurt somebody else when you're playing around with the gun and you're trying to be someone that you're not. And we want to just see you focus on basketball and not have these issues off the court, because when on the basketball court, you're one of the more entertaining players in the league. So I don't get who the receipts are coming from and what he's talking about, but he was asked to clarify on the booze and the receipts after the game.
It's a lot of people that don't like me, so see what I got them. But it was just, I feel like the surprising part was, I got called in the starting lineup. It was loud cheers, and then when the game started, it went to booze. I don't know the reason. I don't know what I did to the Pelicans or their fans, but, hey, they got to root for their team, so it's all good.
Job running off the floor, someone caught you on camera saying, I keep receipts.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? And secondly, what was your meeting?
I feel like it's self-explanatory. Yeah. I remember everything that was said.
Yeah, you lost me, Ja. So you were annoyed during the game when you're a visiting team and you're in the opposition's building that they're booing you? What do you think? They're going to cheer you? You're a member on the visiting team. So that's usually how it works. And then remember what people said? What did people say? You were trying to act like someone that you're not. And then to say, oh yeah, I'm keeping receipts and I remember what everyone said. Oh, everyone finds stupid things to motivate them. But maybe I'm far off on this one, Samter. It feels like most people with Ja Morant, their take when this stuff was happening was, I hope he doesn't do something that harms himself or somebody else. And I hope he stops acting this way because it's going to prevent him from getting on the basketball court. And when he's on the basketball court, the dude's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm sure there were a lot of people who were saying that, but I'm sure there were also people who were saying this guy doesn't belong in the league, or this guy, should be suspended for a full year, or he's a clown, or he's this, or he's that. So I'm sure there were people who
he was acting like a clown.
And listen, maybe some people who didn't fully understand where he was coming from, but at the end of the day, he's an adult making bad decisions.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people did say a lot of negative things. What bothers me is that you took this time away because of your attitude and your off
to learn and get better.
To get better and to get some humility and to understand what you did was wrong. And his first game back, he's taking receipts and calling out the fans. And dude, what did you learn? It worries me that he learned nothing. It worries me that he took this time away. I don't think he learned a damn thing. Yeah, it worried me that he took this time away. He's going to wait like a year and a half, and then he's going to come around and do the same junk again.
Well, look at what happened the first time he did the thing in the strip club that went viral with him showing the gun. They basically told him to stop doing that, and it was, a few months later, if that, where he was on Instagram Live, and his friend was on Instagram Live, and he's twirling the gun, toy gun or not, in his car. Guy learned nothing. Honestly, at least wait till, game 9 or 10 before you start bringing up receipts. Not the first game back. Make the story about yourself and what you've learned, and now how you're back to playing good basketball. You don't have to knock off any rust. Don't let this become the story.
Forget about game 9 or 10. How about year 2 or 3?
Yeah.
How about you show some real growth, win some games in the playoffs, become a better man and a human being, and then you can start talking about the receipts that you're taking.
So the only thing that I think he may have a point on is their record was really good the last 2 years without him. And then this year, they have bottomed out without him. I know they've had a lot of injuries, so maybe that was the part that he was talking about. And I don't know how you should verbalize that, because then you're taking a shot at your other teammates who probably already have had to answer enough questions about you. So I would imagine that's probably the one thing that really got him going. Here's Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, on will they keep Arthur Smith, this courtesy of the Georgia Public Broadcasting.
We're committed to Coach Smith. We're going to play these last 3 games. We play them to win them, and we'll let the season play out and go from there. Obviously, this has not been the kind of year we expected, and you would hear that first from Coach Smith. So we understand that. We understand the challenges. So at the end of the year, we'll assess where we are and go from there.
Does he have to get to the playoffs to come back?
No, I don't. I mean, that was never really a requirement. The requirement was that we have a more competitive team this year, a winning team this year. And I think that, through this part of the season, it's been mixed.
That doesn't sound like a owner who's bringing back his coach. And Arthur Blank is usually a very patient man. And I didn't think Arthur Smith was I thought he should get fired. I didn't think he was going to get fired. You go 1-2 in these final 3 games, your ass is gone. That's the way that I interpret that. Here is Mike McDaniel on the message to the media about the end of the season.
Any other narrative that has to do with good teams or playoff seeds or the next 3 games, all that stuff, I gave them the clearance to tell all members of the media to, with all due respect, F off. With all due respect. Because all we're focused on is the Dallas Cowboys.
The reason why I'm laughing.
F off.
There's sometimes I see headlines and I go, I don't want to hear the sound until we get on the air. And that was one of the headlines that I saw was Mike McDaniel allows players to tell the media to F off. And I'm thinking to myself, what could this be about? And the fact that it was about playoff scenarios, I find to be hilarious. I thought it was going to be about people questioning Tua's health or, something else. But playoff scenarios, I love that. And that's what's going to happen. Buffalo's going to win their next 2 games and play the Chargers and the Pats. The Dolphins will most likely split these next two games with the Cowboys and the Ravens. And then that final game of the season is going to come down to who wins the AFC East. But don't ask any player on the Dolphins what they think about scenarios because they'll tell you to F off.
With all due respect, F off.
I know Alec Ingold. I want to get Alec Ingold on the show this week and just see if he'll tell me to F off on the air because I'll ask him about the playoff scenarios. Here is Christian McCaffrey on who his vote for MVP would go to, this courtesy of the Let's Go podcast with Jim Gray and Tom Brady.
If I had my vote, it'd be Brock as the MVP, and Trent would be the second in line.
I do get a vote this year, just so you know.
Do you? Vote for Brock, man. That guy deserves it, man. I know, obviously, you expect that. He's been unbelievable for this team, and I hate when I hear people say anything negative. Oh, he's just a system quarterback. Everyone's a system quarterback. That's part of what being a quarterback is, in my eyes. I mean, when you play within a system, that's about all you can ask for. And then occasionally you make the plays outside of the X's and O's, and that's all he's done all year.
So if I got this right, Christian McCaffrey's voting for Brock, or would want to vote for Brock. Brock would want the award to go to Christian McCaffrey. And then George Kittle the other day, he said run CMC. So that's where we're going to right now. Is this creating a problem in the 49ers locker room? 855-212-4CBS. Now I sound like Skip Bayless for a second. That will be a segment on Undisputed tomorrow where it's like, oh, that's McCaffrey saying a nice thing that Brock should win the MVP, and they'll try to spin it some way to make it as if they're going to be fighting one another when it's just meant to be a nice thing. All righty, that's a news brief. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. First 2 hours have quickly flown by today. When we come on back, is Davante Adams going to force a trade this offseason? Also, I want to get into some more audio as well from some things that we didn't get into with the news brief, but I really want to touch on this Davante Adams topic because Aaron Rodgers is, I guess, back with the Jets. So Robert Saleh today said that he's going to stay on the active roster so he could practice, but he isn't going to play this year. So now the Jets, who are already eliminated, are into the next season kind of mode. And there's a lot of rumors about maybe some former Packers joining Aaron Rodgers in New York, one being Davante Adams and one actually being a current Green Bay Packer who's hurt this year in David Bakhtiari. So will the Raiders let Davante Adams get away this offseason and trade him? I have one thing the Raiders need to do to ensure that Davante Adams is going to stay with the team this offseason and not request a trade. I'll tell you about that on the other side. Matt Rhule still to come. In about 25 minutes from now, Dylan Raiola going to Nebraska. We'll hook up with the Nebraska head coach. And also, we got to get to Take 5 Wednesday. So a busy hour number 3. We get it all rolling in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, hour number 3 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Matt Rhule going to stop by 20 minutes from now. Nebraska has landed Dylan Rhule, also a top 20 recruiting class, so we will chat it up with the head football coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So Samter and I were talking about this before the show did start, where Robert Saleh had his press conference, and he said the Jets are going to activate Aaron Rodgers to the roster, but they're not going to play him. So let's play you that audio from the Jets head coach in Robert Saleh.
Yeah, so he'll be. We're still going to keep him on the active. You know, we've got the roster flexibility with all the different things that have happened over the course of the last couple of weeks. You know, like I said, it's all part of his rehab, and you know, just having him out on the football field is a plus for everybody. It's a plus for him. It's a plus for his teammates.
You would never activate him.
No. He's not playing.
So he's not playing, but he's going to be on the active roster so he could keep on practicing. And the thought that Samter and I had was, well, who's going to get cut? Well, they said, basically, Saleh said they have the roster spot. You know, they'll find a way to make it work. Well, Field Yates just tweeted out, to make room for Aaron Rodgers in the 53-man roster, the Jets have waived fullback Nick Bawden. So they have waived their fullback. Now, I'm not going to sit here and go, shame on Aaron Rodgers. You got a fullback waived and all that stuff. I'm not going to do that song and dance because I'm realistic. Aaron Rodgers, he is the president of the Jets, the owner of the Jets, the GM of the Jets. He is the head coach of the Jets. He is the quarterback coach of the Jets. The offensive coordinator is Nate Hackett because that's his guy. But he's the star player of the Jets. He is everything of the Jets. And Aaron Rodgers, I guess, wants to continue to practice. So he's got to be on the active roster. And that's the way that they want this to go down. So when you are that great of a player and when you run an organization, even if it is crappy and it comes at the expense of somebody else getting let go, bleep happens. That's life. Life isn't fair. But it's amazing how all of us, we all took the cheese like a bunch of rats in the mousetrap. That's what we did for months. Every single person that deals in logic, and I deal in logic, but even there was a part of me for like a split second that was like, is Aaron actually going to be coming back? And the moment I started to believe that was in the 11th hour. When there was that report last week that he was playing a scout team like safety and he was picking off a football, I thought to myself, oh my God, he's actually going to do this. And then I said, oh, no. He's not actually going to do this because the Jets are going to lose to the Dolphins. And then the season's going to be over and they're going to be eliminated. And then he'll make the argument, I was ready to come back, but the team wasn't in position to win, so there's no point of me coming back. But I do find it funny, Samter, that yesterday he's on with McAfee, and he's like, yeah, I'm not actually close to getting on back and being 100%. He's practicing, he's doing all that, but he's still a few weeks away, is what Aaron Rodgers said. And it's crazy how there's some people that actually talk themselves into fully believing that he was going to play this year. Like, my best friend is a Jet fan. I can't tell you how many times this football season, when we have seen each other in person or when he's talked to me about the Jets, where he's tried to envision this life of this season continuing once Aaron Rodgers got hurt. And he would say, oh, look, they're winning some games. Oh, Zach Wilson stinks. Then Zach Wilson plays great. And anytime they would get a win, it was, Rodgers is coming back. They're going to make the playoffs. And I said this to my best friend. I didn't even do with all due respect and all that because, as my best friend, I could talk to him this way. I go, are you a moron? I go, are you just stupid? Do you like being an idiot, a moron, and a dope? But that's my best friend, Alex, because this team has tortured him so much, and he still finds a way to believe in this team just a little bit. Like, even last week, he's walking around the apartment, as we were watching some of the games, and he's like, oh my God, here comes the Jets. They're going to win. They beat the Texans. They're going to beat the Dolphins. Then Rodgers going to come back. And I go, he's not coming back. It is physically impossible. It's amazing how he's back in the practice field. It's amazing how he's walking around. It's amazing that he's throwing the football. But playing in a game behind this garbage, this hot garbage offensive line would be the dumbest thing they could ever do. But it is crazy how this was something that was talked about. And you know who I blame? I honestly blame Mike Greenberg. Because Mike Greenberg is on, I think they call it in Miami, Jet Up, because of how much he talks about the Jets, which I thought was very funny. I forget who said that. I was driving around Miami one day when I was there like a month or two ago, and they're like, oh, even Mike Greenberg on Jet Up was saying a few things. But Greenberg was so annoyed, and he should be, being a Jet fan, and I think he's a little bit of a Fugazi Jet fan anyway. I didn't really know he was a Jet fan for like the last 20 years until they get Aaron Rodgers, and now he's like the biggest Jet fan in the world. But he is basically picking the Jets to go to the Super Bowl. And then 4 plays into the season, the Jets season is over. And then, like so many of these other idiot Jet fans, they latch on to this idea and this belief that Rodgers was coming back. And it's like one thing when my best friend Alex says it. But when Mike Greenberg is on ESPN every morning on Get Up and people are watching him and he's trying to spew that nonsense, people start to believe it, or people start to open their mind to the possibility of that occurring. But, Samter, I would have never, ever understood how Rodgers would be able to play a game when this guy just tore his Achilles, 13, 14 weeks ago? And I'm not going to be someone that sits here in front of a microphone and goes, did Aaron Rodgers actually tear his Achilles? I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers for the fact that he actually did tear his Achilles. But it's genius by Rodgers. It was genius what he just did, even though it's annoying for the last 3 months, because he is an attention whore. We've seen that the last 3 years. He wanted to keep his name in the news, and he dangled this carrot out there, and he knew that dumb Jet fans would eat it all up with this idea that he was actually coming back and playing football this year.
I don't think it was that dumb of a thing. Like, I say this as a former Jets fan. The Jets were 4-3, and they had a reasonably moderate schedule ahead of them. They had the Chargers and Vegas, and obviously the Bills, Dolphins,
They
Falcons.
lost the Chargers game. They lost their season was over after they lost the Raiders game, in my opinion.
100%. But those are two winnable games that, you know, obviously it's Zach Wilson, so nothing is winnable.
Well, you know what? No, because down deep you are like a Jet fan, even though now you pretend to be a Kansas City Chiefs fan. And I if you recall, I went to that Jet Charger game because my dopey friend Alex wanted to go. He asked me for tickets. We go. He's in the parking lot. Oh, they're going to win the game. I go, you're going to get blown out. You don't have an offense that could score. It's a year of 2023. All right, this is not 1985 where you win games 10-3. And guess what? The Chargers didn't play great. They got blown out. And that's the pathetic Chargers.
Sure. But at the time, they're riding a 3-game win streak. They'd beaten the Broncos. At the time, they were the only team to beat the Eagles. They were in their bye week. They beat the Giants. And then, you know.
The Eagles were a good one. That was about it.
Yeah. And even at the time, Denver was not a bad one either. We see that Denver is still reasonable.
Now it's aged well, but at the time, Denver was a bad team.
But at the end of the day, like, there was hope in the middle of the season that even if the Jets could stay afloat, 6-7, 7-7.
It was false hope.
The end of their season, Washington, Cleveland, Patriots, right? If Aaron Rodgers is healthy and the Jets are 7-7, you tell me they can't go 9-7 or 10-6? Or I'm sorry. They can't go 10-7 or 9-8. Of course. So at the end of the day, there was hope. The reason why he's not coming back, I think Aaron Rodgers, if the Jets were in it, could probably play. I think he legitimately could probably play. But the Jets say, what the heck is the point of getting him out there other than just saying, hey, he's able to do it?
So then this is on Joe Douglas. Because in the year of a backup quarterback, they went back to the well of Zach Wilson, where his teammates, even though they now like him more, hated his guts last year and were wearing Mike White T-shirts the moment Mike White got the opportunity because Zach didn't take any ownership and accountability after losing the game to the Patriots. And he was like, nope, this isn't on the offense, this isn't on us, whatever he said, all that stuff. And you're going to start Zach Wilson. You already know what Zach Wilson is. He's an under 500 quarterback that doesn't give your team a chance to win.
Sure,
even though 2 weeks ago he won AFC Offensive Player of the Week.
What other options do you have? Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, and Brett Rippon. So at the end of the day, like, maybe he was the best option. We saw all those guys in the game, basically, except for Rippon, and they all sucked also. So it didn't really matter.
So then maybe it's the coaching. Like, Joe Flacco was on. Joe Flacco was on this team last year. Joe Flacco was terrible.
No, he wasn't.
Joe Flacco, he was bad.
He had multiple 300-yard games. He wasn't terrible.
Joe Flacco's now with the Browns, and he's lighting it up. You know, it's just like everyone that they put in at the quarterback position, you know, outside of Rodgers, because you only saw him for 4 games, you know what Rodgers is going to do. Rodgers is going to be really damn good, but he still needs a protection. Every quarterback we've seen, Josh Dobbs even had like a 3-week swan song. Like, you couldn't even, like what you're saying, you just wanted hope, you just wanted them to have a chance. All they needed was someone to carry the baton for a little bit. And that wasn't able to happen.
Well, listen, they definitely planned poorly by not having a proper backup, but I think probably deep down they were hoping that Zach Wilson could be, they were hoping obviously not to have to need a backup quarterback, but they were hoping that if it came down to it, Zach Wilson may have made the steps forward. Clearly he hasn't. It was a mistake. But let me just go back to Flacco. Last year, first 3 games when Zach Wilson was hurt. 309 yards, touchdown.
They lost 24-9.
4 touchdowns. 285 yards and 2 picks.
Yeah, he threw the ball. Wait, hold on. 285 yards. He threw the ball 52 times. I would hope you could get 285 yards when you threw the ball 52 times.
He wasn't. I'm not saying he was great, but he wasn't terrible. To say he was terrible is wrong. He wasn't terrible.
He didn't play well. Is that the semantics?
He played the way that you would expect a 37-year-old Joe Flacco to play after being with the team for like 3 months.
Okay, but how about all these other guys? That Jake Browning walks into Cincinnati. He looks good for 2-3 weeks. They can't make a quarterback look decent? I'm not saying make him look great, but look decent.
Flacco beat his first 3 games were the Ravens, the Browns, and the Bengals. I'm not trying to fight for Joe Flacco here, but he won one of those games, and he was competitive in the other one.
Yeah, the Browns game, which was a Fugazi comeback. Remember, that was more Cleveland
it's the
blowing
NFL.
that
You
game.
win, you win, and that's what it is. You threw 385 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's a touchdown. It's a good game. Either way, all I'm saying is, yes, you could say the Jets made a mistake by not having a better backup quarterback than Zach Wilson, but they probably hoped that this second overall pick could learn from Rodgers this year and then actually make a step forward. So I understand
there was
why
no hope
they
for
did
Zach Wilson, though.
They probably were convinced by Rodgers that Rodgers could turn Zach Wilson into what they hoped Zach Wilson. And so maybe it was naive to think it, but they also probably didn't think they had to worry about it. They thought that maybe Rodgers was going to be there. But the reality is we're talking about Rodgers coming back. All right, so my point is there was hope in the middle of the season, and there was legitimate thought that the Jets could be in the playoff hunt. And I think that if they legitimately had a shot at the playoffs, Rodgers would be playing this week.
But there was no shot without Aaron Rodgers. The Jets ever had a shot of getting to the playoffs. That's what I'm saying.
I disagree. With that defense, they were 4-3, and they had 2 winnable games ahead of them. They could have been 5-3, 6-3.
But they weren't.
But at that point, when you beat the Broncos,
it's the same thing as last year.
When you beat the Broncos and then the Eagles and the Giants, and you win 3 straight games, there's hope.
The Giants stink. The Broncos at the time were terrible. And the Eagles, they got lucky to win that game because Jalen Hurts threw his
through 11 weeks. There was
interception.
through 11 weeks, there was one team that beat the Eagles.
Okay.
And through 11 weeks, there was one team that beat the Eagles.
I'm going to hang a banner for you at MetLife Stadium, and it's going to say, we beat the Eagles in, week 11 or whatever it was.
So when the Jets were 4-3, you're saying that
there was no shot.
With the Raiders and Chargers up on their schedule, knowing what they've been going through,
no,
that there was no thought in your mind the Jets could be like 7-7 at this point in the year.
No, and I've said this, the Jets are a good team with Aaron Rodgers. But without Aaron Rodgers, I just saw the same script last year. Now, what I want to say moving off of this too, why it also made no sense to keep Zach Wilson, was now Aaron Rodgers talking about playing for 2 more years regardless. So even if he was, let's say, didn't get hurt this year, Zach Wilson was going to sit on the bench this year and next year, and that this plan, then he would be ready to take back over the team. That was nonsensical from the start if you just follow math.
Well, not necessarily. We've seen a lot of early round quarterbacks that have not done well.
You think Zach Wilson has the ego and the maturity to be quiet for 2 years?
Where else is he going to go? What other team is going to take Zach Wilson and be like, you're going to be our starting quarterback?
Josh Rosen got traded for a second-round pick
and
after 1 year.
And he never played again.
But I'm saying there's other teams that at least will come calling. Sam Darnold, he stunk in New York. And the Panthers...
He played how many games with the Panthers and hasn't played a down basically for the 49ers?
But that's not what you said. It's he'll get another opportunity to be on a roster somewhere.
The difference was Josh Rosen didn't look terrible. He just got a bad rap. And Sam Darnold had flashes.
He was terrible.
Zach Wilson, well... He played Josh Rosen played like a few games, and then they changed coaching staffs and they drafted
and they went to Murray.
Kyler Murray. Right, so it wasn't like they just were like, this guy's terrible, we can't fix him. It was like, we're just going to go a different route because we had the first pick, and Cliff Kingsbury loves Kyler Murray. So that Josh Rosen kind of got screwed. Sam Darnold showed flashes, and there was
one game against the Cowboys.
Zach Wilson, when Sam Darnold left the Jets, nobody was saying this guy's the worst quarterback in the NFL. They were just like, he's probably the Jets. Maybe he hasn't lived up to expectations.
But this is what happens.
Zach Wilson, however, on the other side, people are like, this guy's awful. There's not going to be a single team that's going to be like, we're going to bring this guy in to be our starter. Not a single team in the NFL.
But this is what happens. You have ego get in the way, and you see one performance that Zach Wilson had 2 weeks ago that was actually good, and there's an offensive coordinator that goes, oh, it's the Jets. They mess it up. I could fix it. It's happened 9,000 times in the history of the league. Now,
maybe some team wants to bring him as a backup, but no one's bringing him as a starter.
I'm not saying that. That's not what I said. I'm just saying giving him an opportunity to revitalize his career. He was not going to wait 2 years. There's no chance he doesn't have the maturity. And his mom also would be blasting the Jets on social media, and she wouldn't put up with her son sitting on the bench or not getting an opportunity to at least compete for 2 years. Now, this is all Rodgers' team. This offseason, Bakhtiari's coming over on the offensive line. Davante Adams, I really think it depends on Antonio Pierce. They bring back Antonio Pierce, I think Davante Adams is more inclined to stay. But if they don't bring in Antonio Pierce, I think Davante Adams already has the trade request written up, and he'll be ready to file it to Mark Davis. Adams likes Pierce. Now, I don't think it's the end-all, be-all, but their best chance to keep Davante Adams from requesting a trade is to keep Antonio Pierce as the head coach. Matt Rhule will join us on the other side. His program at Nebraska, following 1 year, just had a monster recruiting class on early National Signing Day, a top 20 class, and also the number 1 quarterback in the nation, Dylan Raiola, is going to Lincoln. Matt Rhule joins us next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining.
We continue. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. It's early National Signing Day, and what a day it's been for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They have a top 20 class, and they have the number one quarterback recruit in the country going home to go Big Red Country, and that, of course, is Dylan Rhule. Now joining us is their head football coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers in Matt Rhule. Coach, first and foremost, congratulations. Appreciate you doing this, and how you been?
Man, I'm doing great, and I appreciate you having me on, brother. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. So just when it comes to Dylan, we know that, right, his uncle's on your coaching staff. His father is a Nebraska legend. When you got word that he was going to be joining your program and coming to play his college football with you, how do you kind of put that into words?
Man, well, I was fired up. I really was. Dylan's a really, really special young man. He's a great player on the field and an even better person off of it. And as you said, anytime someone has access to behind the scenes, anytime they can talk to their uncle and see what things are really like, and they want to come, to me that's a great autopsy of your program. It means things are being done right, and so we're thrilled to have him. It's a big day for us.
Following this the last year, once you got there was all this speculation that maybe you would land Dylan, and then, right, he makes that commitment to Georgia, and it looks like he's going there. And then you guys clearly got him to flip in the last week or two. Just take me through that process, how it looked like he was going to Georgia, and now he's coming home to you guys.
Really it was all on his end, Zach. I think he reached out to me last Sunday. He obviously had decided to go to Georgia. What a great program, perennial champions. Was living down there at Buford. And, I think, just the relationship to Nebraska for his family, what this place has meant to his father, growing up being a Husker fan. I think it just kind of came full circle for him. And it's obviously it means nothing about Georgia. Georgia's a great program. I just think this was something very personal to he and his family. And when he gave me that call, man, I was surprised, but I was grateful and excited to see what he can do for us.
What was the first thing you did once you got that phone call from Dylan saying that he wanted to join you guys?
Man, I called our recruiting guy and said, get the paperwork ready. Again, when he first called, first said, hey, I'm thinking about this. And I, really, really encouraged him to, take his time, make sure it was right for him. Came out and visited, and you could tell when he was here, he wanted to be here, and it was going to be the right fit. And, again, just happy to have it sewn up now and excited to get him here and get started.
Talking to the head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers in Matt Rhule. For people that haven't seen him play, what kind of quarterback are you getting from your evaluation?
Well, Dylan has amazing arm talent, as good as anyone I've seen, can make all the throws all across the field. A big, powerful guy, but athletic in the pocket. You can tell he wears 15. He patterns a lot of his game after Patrick Mahomes. And while there is only one Patrick Mahomes, Dylan certainly can, has worked on making all of the off-platform throws and all the things you really have to do in today's game with the pass rushers and the pressure to move in the pocket and find guys that are open. So there's not a lot of transition for him in terms of the arm talent. He'll just have to kind of learn the system and grow as a quarterback from the ground up.
I've been following the excitement on social media when this was rumored about a week and a half ago, then when it became official the other day, just for you to see that excitement amongst your fan base, which is as passionate as fans there are in college football. And I got to see that firsthand this year when I made a trip out to Lincoln. Just what does that excitement mean to you to see it from your loyal fans?
Well, you're right. Our fans are unbelievably loyal, and they've been loyal through tough times. And we really wanted to give them a winner this year. Yeah, I believe we gave them some really good moments, but not really everything that they deserved. And so to head into this off season, to get a guy like Dylan, to get 8 players from the state of Nebraska, as you said, to get a top 20 class, I hope that it gives them hope that we're heading in the right direction and that the days that they deserve are in the near future.
Right, Matt, I saw you at Temple build up that program and get more fans in the stands than they've ever seen before. A lot of people wondered why you did go to Baylor when you could have taken an easier job, but you built Baylor back up quickly. For this job at Nebraska, we all know what Nebraska means to so many people, but why did you elect to take it when you did so a little over a year ago? Because I always find the jobs that you take to have a little extra meaning to them.
Yeah, well, I think when you think about college football, and you're someone who loves college football like I do, what is a more iconic program than the University of Nebraska? And to see a program that's fallen on hard times, I just love the thought of doing something right and doing something good for the game. The game needs Nebraska to be successful. It needs it to be of interest. And, I love the place. I love the relationship I've been able to form with Tom Osborne and Frank Solich and so many more, of the leadership of Trev Alberts, who played here as our AD. And honestly, Zach, it reminds me a lot of Temple. People here, they love the game, they want to win, but they want to play it a certain way. We played really physical football at Temple. We ran the ball. We played defense. That's not always popular everywhere, but it's what Nebraskans love. And so we're not there yet, but when we get there, they'll appreciate not just winning the games, but the way that we play.
It's also tough to build a program now because if you coach a kid too hard or the kid doesn't like the coaching, he could leave in the transfer portal. And I think kids should have that freedom and also be able to get paid through NIL and stuff like that. But is it at all, you go into the NFL and then coming back and now having this new era of college football, Matt Rhule, has that changed the way at all that you've coached on the field or in practice?
No, not at all. I remember there was a player that I coached in the NFL that was a rookie, and he was coming out of a program, and I was like, man, no one ever coached this player. The greatest thing you could do for a player is set high expectations for them and hold them accountable to them. Just like the best thing you can do for yourself is set high expectations and hold yourself accountable to them. So, we've never defamed anyone. We've never demeaned anyone. We don't, but we do have a high vision for what you can be, and we want you to be that. And so, we entered this year, finished this year. We were 5-7, no bowl game. You'd think everyone would hit the portal, and really no one did. I think the players here know that we care about them and want them to be great and want them to be great off the field. And in fact, Zach, we had 5 players that were scheduled to graduate and leave and head off to the NFL, 3 of whom were, all Big Ten caliber players, and they all asked to come back and play another year. So I just think it's like anything else in life. It comes down to relationships. If people know you care, then they're going to stick with you. And we care a lot about these guys. We want them to say that, we were some of the best coaches they ever had.
So where do you think you're at in this rebuilding process? You guys almost made a bowl game this past year. You guys played some great defense. You obviously had offensive problems. But when you get ready now for year number 2, and you have this recruiting cycle come and go, and the excitement of early National Signing Day start to fade away, and you guys get to work. What do you think you guys are working towards to try to accomplish in year 2?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we're right where we should be. We finished 5-7. Again, 5 of those losses by 3 points or in overtime. We believe that we can compete in every game we play in. But with all that being said, though, those are just words. We have a lot of work to do. We have to improve the offense. We were a year into this defense. We caught a lot of people by surprise. They'll catch up a little bit. To me, it's just about our players growing this year, getting a little bit better. And, again, I expect us to compete in everything that we do next year. I expect us to be a team that people don't want to play, that they know is a tough team to play. We're gonna go back to the mat drills and go back to the off season and do everything it takes to earn the right to win.
Where Nebraska has been the last few years from where they were, naturally people are going to say, whether they're criticizing you or criticizing the program, that they'll never get back. What do you say to people that doubt what you're doing and doubt what you're trying to lead Nebraska back to?
I really don't say anything to him, brother. It's like, I lived that life at Temple. I lived that, they 2-10, and he can't do it, and he should fire the D coordinator. And 2 years later, you're coach of the year. And I lived that life at Baylor where it's 1-11, and why we hire a guy from New Jersey, and 2 years later we're in the Sugar Bowl. So the best thing you can do in my mind is just believe in what you're doing, believe in the people you're with, and just work. And you know what? If people are doubting you, they probably have a lot of reason to. You haven't done enough yet to show them. So I would much rather just focus my energy on being relentless this offseason about building a winner. And, we came up just short, Zach. And I'll be honest with you. I think if we would have gone to a bowl game, we might have been a little bit satisfied with, hey, we've accomplished something. I can tell you no one's satisfied right now. And just like that second year at Temple where we went 6-6 and got snubbed from a bowl game. We will work and we will play next year with a chip on our shoulder. And when I'm like that, when our team is like that, good things will happen.
On the way out with Matt Rhule, the head football coach at Nebraska, I saw this on social media. Did you crash a wedding with your coaching staff the other night?
Well, we were. In fairness, we were invited. So, we were doing an official visit in Lincoln, and we had one of our top recruits, Carter Nelson. We were supposed to see him out in his town of Ainsworth, Nebraska, about 4 hours from Lincoln. So we hopped on the school plane. We flew out, and the day before they said, "Hey, there's a big wedding in town. The guys, it's 2 teachers in the school, huge fans. Carter's like, I'm going to the wedding after the basketball game. It'd be great if you guys could go. They'd love to have you." So we went over, took some pictures with the family, signed a bunch of stuff for all the people in the town, and I really had a great time. And I'll be honest with you, like, that's what Nebraska football is all about. It's just unbelievable people here in the state, and we're going to find a way to bring a winner to them.
Did they have runses at the wedding? Because I'm now addicted to runses after my trip to Lincoln.
They might have. To be honest with you, I spent a lot of my time taking pictures, so I never made the buffet line, but Coop or Sad or one of those guys might have hit it. But there is nothing better than a runza, and I hope I think you saw firsthand, man, like just how special this place can be and what it means and how cool of a town this is. So I'm anxious about getting to next season.
Last thing I want to ask you, Coach Matt Rhule. I saw that Chip Kelly the other day said that maybe college football should go to a 64-team Power 5 conference pretty much and just condense it all into one with all the never-changing landscape that we have right now in the sport with so many schools leaving their current conference and going somewhere else. Do you think that would work? Have you given it much thought if maybe we should just consolidate this to one big conference?
Yeah, maybe that's the answer. I don't know. I think the bigger thing that Chip said that I agree with is it's just a collective vision, right? We're in this age now of the transfer portal. We're in this age of NIL, and there's not a lot of standards to it. And so in the NFL, when you have a commissioner, you have a competition committee, rules are being applied the same, and there's a premium on preserving competition and preserving the rosters and preserving the game day. And this year, like never before, rosters are under attack. The game itself came under attack this year a little bit. Having a commissioner with power or having leadership with power and having a streamlined approach, I think would be a big deal. Right now NIL is different in every state, and so I love to level the playing field just by making things streamlined within either one conference or one vision. And not everyone will be able to do it. Not everyone will be able to step up maybe and afford to play that game, but let's delineate that so we all we're all playing by the same rules, and if we do that, I think the game will be much better.
Hey, one more thing for you, Matt, before we let you run, and I really appreciate you jumping on board with us today. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this because, in my job, usually all we talk about are the coaches and the quarterbacks. How about the rest of this class that you got today? What else jumps out to you?
Yeah, man, we put a premium on offensive linemen. We went out and signed a bunch of big, strong guys, local guys, but went all the way out to Hawaii to get Preston Tabua. So brought a bunch of DBs in, a bunch of receivers in, but at the same time went out and found some big guys on the offensive line and some pass rushers to allow us to win in the Big Ten.
Well, Matt, congratulations. Appreciate you doing this. Enjoy the holiday season. Thanks for coming on as always.
All right, thanks, my friend.
Recruiting class for them, top 20 class. Also, Dylan Raiola, the number 1 quarterback recruit in this class, committing to Nebraska. His father, a Nebraska legend on the offensive line, and now actually his uncle is the offensive line coach at Nebraska. We'll take a timeout, our final one of the day. When we return, it is a Take 5 Wednesday right here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I'll give you my top 5 teams in the NFL. Update time first. Here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Sports Flag.
Well, for a guy that's played just 4 snaps this year, Aaron Rodgers has certainly commanded a lot of attention. He won't play, but was activated to the Jets roster today, but only so he can continue to practice and take the next steps in his recovery. As for their current quarterback, Zach Wilson, his status for this weekend has yet to be determined because he is still in concussion protocol, as is the Jaguars' Trevor Lawrence, and the Texans' C.J. Stroud has yet to return to practice, while the Saints' Chris Olave will return tomorrow night against the Rams after missing last week due to an ankle injury. The Celtics have been the best team in the East and the first to 20 wins in the conference. They're unbeaten at home, winning all 14 games, but the road, a different story. They're in Sacramento tonight after seeing its 5-game winning streak end last night with an overtime loss to the Warriors, which drops them to 6-6 on the road, and Jaylen Brown said they need to move on quickly.
Have the right mentality, come out tomorrow and find a way to get a win. Can't drop 2 in a row. Regardless of what happened tonight, we got to figure out how we can come out and get a win tomorrow. So I think that's what we're focused on now. We got to put this one behind us.
The Kings have won their last 3 and are 4th in the West. The two teams right behind them meet in Dallas, where the Mavericks host the Clippers, who have won 8 in a row, the longest current streak in the NBA. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. It's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day, and it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Addison in Des Moines says, Zach, after the 49ers and Ravens, who are the better teams in the NFL? You could submit a question by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. You can think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Well, Addison, I'll answer that question right now in a Take 5 Wednesday.
As the dust settles from last week's games, it's time to look at which teams are rising and which are falling.
And there's an interception.
Zach ranks his top 5 NFL teams on this week's edition of Take 5, only on the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty. I'm going to do an audible here. I usually go 5-1 here. I'm going to go 1-5 because I've done now Take 5 Wednesday for 3 straight years on CBS Sports Radio. This is the toughest one I've ever had to do. Because after the first 2 teams, it's like, we got to get to 5. So in at number 1, to no surprise, the best team in the NFL are the San Francisco 49ers. Outside of a 3-game stretch where they were without Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams, no one's been able to come close to beating them. Those are their only 3 losses on the season, was when they had those injuries. They are a phenomenal football team. Brock Purdy is playing at MVP level. Christian McCaffrey should win the MVP, in my opinion, even though it probably will end up being Brock Purdy. Deebo Samuel is great. George Kittle is great. Trent Williams is Hall of Famer. Future Hall of Famer. And the defense is just unbelievable. There is not a single flaw. In a world of negativity, there is not a single thing I could say in a negative way about the San Francisco 49ers. So they're in at number 1. At number 2, they keep on doing it because Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh are a great combination. And Lamar Jackson's healthy. They've lost J.K. Dobbins. They now lost Keaton Mitchell. They have Mark Andrews done for the season. Isaiah Likely has now turned into a reliable option for them the last 2 weeks. They keep on finding a way because Lamar Jackson extends plays with his legs. He has improved as a thrower. He is just such an unbelievable weapon on a football field, and that defense is pretty damn good. So the Ravens are in at number 2. Alrighty, folks, bear with me. Fasten those seatbelts because we're in a ride to get to spots 3, 4, and 5, and I think I'm going to annoy a lot of people. I don't try to annoy you, but I just tell you how I genuinely feel. In at number 3, it wasn't a terribly tough decision. This team is getting hot at the right time. And I think that they're going to win out and probably win the AFC East. It's the Buffalo Bills. In a year where everyone's quarterback has got injured, Josh Allen has remained healthy enough. That defense the last 2 weeks has played better. They just dominated the Dallas Cowboys. They had a big win up against Kansas City, too. And what impressed me so much with Buffalo last week up against the Cowboys was usually you'd think it's just Josh Allen be Superman and run through a brick wall, and that's how they're going to win. Well, the Buffalo Bills just won a game where Josh Allen threw for under 100 yards passing. And you had an offensive line just bully the great Dallas Cowboys defense, and James Cook up a masterpiece and a masterful meal, and the Buffalo Bills are now trending in the right direction. Just when they're dead, now they are back. Just when you're out, they suck me back in. I'm back in on the Buffalo Bills. They're in at number 3. Now, at number 4, it just shows you what type of team and what type of season the NFL is. I've been thoroughly disappointed the last 3 weeks with the Philadelphia Eagles. It's one thing to get blown out by the 49ers. Then you don't even have a good effort against the Cowboys after you just got embarrassed by the 49ers. So back-to-back weeks you got blown out. At least you showed up in the first 58 minutes up against the Seahawks, but it wasn't even as if they played this wonderful game, and you allowed Drew Lock. It's weird, I'm saying the 4th best team and I'm about to shred them. And you allowed Drew Lock to go 92 yards in under 90 seconds. That's inexcusable. The Eagles shouldn't be in the top 5, but this is their first bad stretch of the season, and there's no one really else out there in the NFL that I'm really in love with. So because of their potential and because they got to the Super Bowl last year, I guess we put the Eagles in at number 4. Now, I basically blindfolded myself here, and I then just smacked my hand on a board, and whatever team popped up, that's who I did go with. For the 5th spot, I don't even love this team. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're a great team. They got 2 big tests the next 2 weekends to show that they could actually beat some good teams, but it's the Miami Dolphins. I know they were playing the Jets, but they didn't have Tyreek Hill, and I know they just choked the game up against Tennessee, but Jalen Waddle, surprise, surprise, they actually used him, which they didn't do up against Tennessee. So because of the offensive firepower that the Dolphins have, and in a year where we're all limping to find the 5 best teams in the NFL, through 15 weeks going to week 16, I guess I'll put the Miami Dolphins. So 49ers 1, Ravens 2, Bills 3, Eagles 4, and I guess the Dolphins 5? You
sound very confident.
Yeah, I don't love it.
I mean, it feels like there are just some really big dominant teams in the top 5 there. Just domination.
I love 2 teams. I like a 3rd team. After that, I'm like,
There's only one team I love. I don't even love the Ravens. I like the Ravens.
Nah, that's fair.
I don't love the Ravens.
I love the 49ers.
Yes.
I really, really, really like the Ravens.
Yeah.
I am talking myself into the Bills, and everybody else, it's not you, babe. It's me. All right? That's what it's the kind of the feeling.
All right,
where you know it's you, but you just don't want to say that.
Well, listen, Costanza. I created the it's you, it's not you, it's me. All right, so speaking now.
Or forever hold your peace. There's a lot to speak about this week.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit disappointed that you're leaving out the Lions.
The Lions and Dolphins are similar. They could beat a bunch of teams, then they go up against good teams. They don't beat them. I know that the Lions just crushed the Broncos. I think the Broncos are wildly overrated. I just don't trust Jared Goff outside of a dome. Like, we're splitting hairs, but I will trust the Dolphins offense a little bit more in a bigger game than the Lions offense. That's why I didn't put them in.
Like on a neutral field, Lions-Dolphins. Like, you just think about that
Dolphins.
game. Yeah, so then there it is.
I think it's close. I think it's, hey, if we got a Dolphins-Lions Super Bowl, that would be great. 34-31 would be a fun game.
To see the Lions in the Super Bowl would be so awesome.
Yeah.
Just for that city. How about my boys, the Chiefs? I mean, I understand they're 9-5, and all the other teams you put on this list have double-digit wins, except for, of course, the Bills who have 8 wins. The Chiefs.
You know why I can't go Kansas City? Because they were playing a garbage Patriot team, and people are talking them up after beating the Patriots by 10 points. where Kadarius Toney had a drop that led to an interception. I need to see more from Kansas City.
The important thing, though, for me was that the one thing you can say about the Patriots is their defense is solid.
Yes.
Very good, high-quality defense.
But their offense is trash.
But they scored 27 points on that defense. So it shows that there's at least some level of maybe optimism about the offense moving forward.
But does it, or is it just eventually the defense is going to break when the offense is that bad? And Mahomes, they had a gritty victory.
The offense will never be that bad.
Yeah, they had a gritty victory. They need Isaiah Pacheco back. Isaiah Pacheco comes back, I think that's a totally different team.
Who would have
thought
thought that
a big
Isaiah
loss.
Pacheco is the missing piece for that offense?
It's an enormous loss. It is. He is an angry runner. I love the way that he runs.
And I understand how you left the Dallas Cowboys off the list after last week's game, but I mean, they are 10-4.
Yeah,
they are the 2 seed right now, or I guess they're the 3 seed in the NFC.
Yeah.
But to leave them off, I mean, the Dolphins and the Cowboys, if neutral field,
they're all similar.
Neutral field. I mean, they're playing this week. Neutral field doesn't matter. I got Cowboys this week.
All right, I'll give you my prediction later in the week. But the Dolphins, the Lions, and the Cowboys are all similar. So I ended up going with the guy that's hurt right now, who I'll put in the top 5. Tyreek Hill is the guy that I trust the most, and I think Tyreek is trending back towards play. It was close last week. All righty, that's a Take 5 Wednesday on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I just feel wrong after giving that Take 5. I really do. I always love the Take 5s I give. This one, after the first 2 selections, it was yee. And I just did not like it.
Can we just change it to Take 1?
Niners or the field on CBS Sports Radio.
That's a segment tomorrow.
All righty, fun show today. Once again, if you missed the big announcement, that wasn't really much of a secret. The Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio is officially moving to this time slot, Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 p.m. Pacific. I'd like to appreciate and thank each and every one of you. We'll be back tomorrow, and we'll talk to you at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.